You ever see a man laugh out loud at his own ex-wife right in front of the whole family because he's so sure he's about to win everything, only to have his whole world implode in under 2 minutes? Yeah, that happened at the Prescott Mansion on a Monday morning, so crisp it felt like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for a storm to hit. But before we get to the fireworks, let me back up a sec because if you want to know how a family built on Southern tradition and old money managed to eat itself alive, you have to start with a text message meant to kill, and a woman who, for 15 years, let everyone underestimate her. Evangeline Prescott didn't look like the kind of woman you'd picture as the backbone of a Savannah dynasty. She was quiet, bookish, always 2 steps behind the real action in that big, echoing house with its portraits of generals and oil tycoons scowling down from gilded frames. That night, the chandelier was scattering light like 1,000 broken promises across the mahogany walls, and Evangeline found a forgotten phone buzzing on the side, table one she shouldn't have seen. But fate doesn't really care about privacy, does it? She read Brianna Sheffield's message. Brianna, with her salon hair and country club smile gloating about finally getting rid of the intellectual witch of the Prescott Mansion. The message was for Jameson, her husband. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing that sets the tone for a family reunion in Savannah. Samuel Prescott, the patriarch, saw her pale. He might have been 80 and wrapped in silk pajamas, but he'd been reading People longer than most folks in that town had been alive. "What are you reading, dear?" he asked from his wheelchair, voice as soft as a warning shot. Evangeline lied. It tasted like rust. Samuel, sharp as cut glass, never missed a beat. He started talking about legacy and character, telling her how the real treasures in a family aren't the stocks and land, but the people who keep the heart of it beating. That night, as the Spanish moss drifted outside and the fire cracked, Jameson came home loud, bourbon glass in hand, stinking of perfume that wasn't his wife's. He was the kind of man who thought the rules didn't apply to him, not in business, not in marriage. The confrontation came quick. Samuel's voice, once strong enough to silence boardrooms, sliced right through Jameson's act, calling out his lies about business meetings with Brianna. The mask fell off in seconds. Evangeline realized then that some performances just reached their end. She decided, maybe for the first time in 15 years, not to let it slide. When Jameson finally confessed 8 months of infidelity, reduced to entertainment, she didn't even cry. Samuel ordered him out, told him to get lost before he forgot he was his son. Jameson shot back with the kind of threat you only make if you're sure the world owes you. When he's gone, everything comes to me anyway. But Evangeline saw through him, saw how thin and desperate he was under the swagger. The weeks that followed were brutal. Samuel's health faded. Jameson vanished for days at a time, more interested in his inheritance than his dying father. Evangeline found Jameson's burner phone and discovered not just an affair, but a plan. Jameson and Brianna mocking her, planning Samuel's death, lining up lawyers to make sure Evangeline got nothing. There were texts about Samuel's medications, about speeding things along, about her being nothing but a sentimental cover story until they cashed in. That's the twist, right? It's never just about love or money. It's about power and what you think you're owed. But Samuel, dying as he was always 3 moves ahead. He called Evangeline to his room, handed her a heavy portfolio of legal papers, changing everything. He'd rewritten his will, disinheriting Jameson entirely, leaving everything to Evangeline. Blood isn't family, he told her. Showing up when it matters is. The kind of words that make you wonder if old money ever really means anything in the end. 3 days later, Samuel passed with Evangeline reading to him Pride and Prejudice, their favorite. Jameson showed up half an hour late, already planning the future with Brianna. The funeral was a spectacle. Everyone in Savannah wanted to see the show. Judge Hartwell, the family lawyer, called the will reading. Jameson strutted in, Brianna on his arm, already shopping the mansion's antiques. But when the judge read Samuel's words, the air went cold. The entirety of my estate to Evangeline Sarah Prescott. Brianna's red dress, Jameson's certainty, all that arrogance evaporated. Jameson exploded, threatening lawsuits. But the will had an extra clause. Contest it, and you lose even your allowance. Brianna, ever the opportunist, laughed in his face and walked out. Jameson tried to crawl back. What's yours is mine, right? But Evangeline had already decided. I've been thinking about ending it, she said. And she meant it. The divorce was swift and ugly. The courts gave Jameson nothing but that $5,000 monthly check, not enough to keep Brianna or his place in Savannah's elite. He was exposed, shunned, left with nothing but his bitterness. Meanwhile, Evangeline transformed. She used the inheritance for good, establishing scholarships, preserving history, turning the mansion into something more than a monument to dead men's greed. She became a name whispered with respect, not pity. But then the shadows crept in. Phone calls, late-night intrusions, someone searching Samuel's study. Was it Jameson, desperate for revenge? The police said no, his alibi was ironclad. The real twist came when Brianna resurfaced, stripped of her glamour, terrified. They'd killed Samuel slowly, methodically, using digitalis to speed his death. Brianna, racked with guilt and fear, handed over the evidence. Texts, bank transfers, voice recordings. Jameson had paid a hitman, Curtis Redmond, to finish the job if the will didn't go his way. With nothing left to lose, Evangeline brought everything to the FBI. Jameson was arrested conspiracy, elder abuse, attempted murder. In court, his own voice sealed his fate. The old bastard should have died months ago. Life without parole. And Evangeline? She sold it all. The mansion, the stocks, the businesses liquidated to create the largest educational foundation in the state. She kept enough to live simply, finally free. The last thing she packed was Samuel's photograph, the only real inheritance that mattered. You want a story about justice? About how sometimes the underdog wins, but the cost is losing the illusion that love or blood means safety. Maybe the real lesson is this. You can laugh at someone you think is powerless, you can plot and scheme, but character isn't for sale, and the world finds ways to even the scales sometimes with a vengeance. Now, I've got to ask, was Samuel right to do what he did? Was justice really served? Or did everyone lose in the end? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop them below. Let's debate what makes a family, what makes a legacy, and whether karma ever really comes full circle. If you want more stories that turn your idea of justice upside down, don't forget to subscribe and join me next time, because in this world, the truth always finds its way out, one way or another.